bobr. Kurwa bobr.
A number of online activists have commented on the fall of Western civilization. In fact, as a Westerner myself, I am qualified to give my opinion. There are decades where weeks happen, and weeks where decades happen. We are currently in the part where in the decades happen weeks or decades, but being sick of being bored is all like being sick of breathing air. And nevertheless, ideological fanaticism will lead us to victory in these decades. Have you ever read that essay about the liberalism poison cup strategy? The idea is basically inoculate yourself against the decline of birth rates caused by liberalism by slowly introducing it to your own culture over a long period and then spread it very quickly to everyone else, such that their birth rates are affected much more drastically. Kaiser Bausch and What If Old Hist will never talk about this. This is why you're watching my channel. Staunch centrists will say this video is fake. Conservatives will call me insane. Liberals will laugh at me and try to dox me and harass me and pull up to my house in a black SUV. But even death does not stop my ambition. As stated before, everything in said video will be entirely comprised of AI-generated memes. Everything you're about to witness has no connection to any events in the real world, and all similarities are purely coincidental. Voting is evil. Not every exasperated voter could have become homosexual, but a particle of homosexuality is lodged in every exasperated voter. There are too many commentators who try to rehabilitate voting. Limiting the franchise just means liberal democracy with more steps. No, reserving voting to those aged between 25 and 65 will not help. Limiting voting to one vote per family is the worst idea I have ever heard in my fucking life. Voting is inherently socialist because it presumes that everyone taking part in this act, whose level is lower than sodomy, is equal. There is no equality between anyone, anywhere. All relations in connection to governing are fundamentally between superior and subordinate. Everyone is on a great chain of being. A child is subordinate to their parent, who is subordinate to the autocrat, who is subordinate to the Father in heaven. Political equality, as expressed through voting, no matter how limited the franchise may start out, is a race to the bottom. Any democratic mechanism is essentially a front for the worst kind of abhorrent socialism. If you're on the online right today and you still support elected representation in any capacity, you're in the maw of the Ouroboros. You are the source of your own suffering. Keith Woods is a nationalist, but nationalism is just another form of mass immigration if it includes any voting at all. Keith Woods supports the self-immolating notion of an aristocratic Republican government. Therefore, he is actually and unironically collapsing. By the way, 99.8% of the time Keith Woods spends online is dedicated to debunking National Socialism. Look at this article. Fair enough, mid-century Germany existed 80 years ago, so we can't just copy and paste everything they did. However, when Keith Woods makes arguments in favor of an aristocratic republic, he brings up Aristotle and ancient Greece. Now, if you're against National Socialism because it was from another age, then why the fuck would you model a modern government on ancient Greece? That was 2,500 years ago. In the same way that I would never justify an autocracy using National Social Germany, it's equally as foolish to justify a republic using ancient Athens. Whatever Goebbels did is infinitely more applicable than Diogenes. Hermann Göring is like a superhero for us Aryans. Albert Speer made safe investments to diversify his portfolio. Heinrich Himmler ran the SS like an amoeba on benzos. We should study this so the same mistakes aren't made. Never again, if you know what I mean. Constitutions are evil. We received a constitution from God. It's called the Ten Commandments. Again, there are too many constitution parasites infected online activists. There is nothing divinely inspired about the American Constitution. We must assert the following in all domains. Autocracy is morally just. There is no such thing as an earthly paradise, only a celestial one. The good savage is a myth. There has only ever been original sin. Golgotha was replaced by Shoahism under the noses of an apathetic and disunited atheist biomass. Paternal autocracy is the only way forward. The autocrat will be the little father, the surrogate of Christ on earth. humans can be property too. The autocrat owns the governors own the aristocracy, and the aristocracy own the subjects. Therefore, the autocrat has a direct and personal interest in the prosperity of his land. Elected representation does nothing to advance civilization. The point of civilization in general is to provide giant manorial estates for eugenically optimized 140 IQ mean warrior aristocrats to live in. For everyone else, the point of civilization is to have a retard girl cell wife. By the way, a woman being feminine is right-wing coded, which is masculine coded. A woman being masculine is left-wing coded, which is feminine coded. This disproves the existence of woman.
Мы будем ебать свиней! Еби свина! Я ебал свиней! Я ебал свиней!
As is known, the mainstream media challenges us constantly. They know conservative, people have firearms. As we see our country being truaned out, children being transmaxed, their challenge to us is to keep our guns away from our mouths. White men are losing, statistically. The quality of life is diminishing rapidly, and I can no longer expect to be a homeowner. Broadly speaking, food is becoming a rare commodity on par with women with a body count below 100. Mental midgets like John Goyle are putting forward the final solution of collaborating with Zionists to get concessions for free sex online. Of course, as a reasonable person, I understand that there's only one salvation: ideological fanaticism. So-called modern, sophisticated, educated minds smugly look at czarist ultra-monarchist ideology and call it passé. There are lots of fraud conservative academics with Vaseline-covered fingers who recoil at a paternal autocracy. They use some influence networks to advance the interest of an anti-white American empire. In turn, they ruthlessly try to brain drain whites from other Aryan nations, particularly Canada, which they hate intensely. My advocacy for my own country has been called caveman thinking, and not in fashion, by this Talmudic network. As men who host 15 racist podcasts, they cannot stomach the idea that Canada exists and will continue to exist forever and ever and ever, spitting in the face of their project. All their intellectual justifications around Atlanticism, Nietzscheanism, Christianity, and pan-nationalism simply amount to an attempt to establish global domination. Much like mixing all colors of paint together and only getting brown, this is what the American empire already is. An American influencer funded by the United Arab Emirates said, "Quite naturally, we count you Canadians as offshoots of the American nation, along with the Dutch, the Germans, the French, the English, the Polish, and the Scandinavians. One day we will group ourselves around a single banner, and whosoever shall wish to separate us, we will exterminate." So, they will have to shatter all the bones in my body. From the perspective of pan-nationalists, there is no justification for the Canadian state. It is an ideological union between different nations working for death to America. The Confederation of 1867 was a pragmatic union. Much like Switzerland, nation-states, like the Third Reich, will inevitably drift into liberalism and ultimately socialism. Ideological fanaticism as a policy goes beyond nationalism and advocates for autocracy for the sake of autocracy. The reaction to monarchism is, there's a reason monarchy isn't around anymore, you're just wasting your time. Yes, the reason monarchy doesn't exist anymore is because America went around the world killing it. If America were an absolute monarchy and actively toppled democracies, you would think that America is a terrorist state, not that democracy isn't viable anymore. And trust me, America is a terrorist state. Democracy was rejected from being hyper-aware of its consequences. My ideology can be summed up in 3 words: Christianity, autocracy, and nationalism, otherwise known as CAN. Canada. While I was writing the script, I got a vision of small gnome-sized skids on my monitor as clear as day. I'm unsure of what it meant, but I'm taking it as a declaration of war. I should probably lay off the DPH. University is so boring that I daydreamt of ODing on Benadryl in a local forest in March or April. I don't remember. It's just a coincidence when Goyle and everyone in his circle jerk promote every single gay Republican sucking Jewish cock. Blissful ignorance is good now, guys, don't worry. A Sargoyle of Swindon regularly portrays this hard reality in a soft light. He says,
"Straight Republicans are kissing the foreheads of little Jewish girls."
"This is the new face of Western populism, giving Anne Frank a kiss on the forehead. Our national cause is faced with a world of enemies. The first enemy of liberalism has always been monarchy. That is why even today, crypto-liberal Zioshills discourage monarchism. As proof, when the Russian Tsardom was overthrown in 1917, Lloyd George, then British Prime Minister, said,
"One of the objectives of the Great War has been achieved."
The peoples of the Central Powers love their monarchs, and for the part of the Allies, they have committed far more crimes against humanity than Kaiser Wilhelm. America continues to commit a crime against humanity by existing. For a national, moral renewal, there can be no compromise of snakes who want to destroy us and our families. Since World War II, the United States and Russia have been in a partnership to end humanity. They will largely succeed. The Enlightenment, democracy, and its followers have undertaken the most disgustingly violent campaign in world history to spread their ideas. What about the Habsburgs, Wilhelm II, the Romanovs, Mussolini, and Mustache Man? Did they deserve it? They toppled all those states, and for what? To create the UN? To spread American culture? To let banks control our lives? Liberals have never once thought about the future. It's hard to say if they even think at all. They're slaves to history. Even as their project turns Britain and Sweden into the rape capitals of the world, they fight against the only order that can guarantee the safety of our people. Do they really think history will see it their way? What do they think will happen to this world once they win? What will we return to? Where will we go? We all know how this ends. Whatever happens, you solely are responsible for it. Reality is closing in on their anti-human campaign because of the only thing democracy can't fix. That's right, the behavior of African Americans. Nothing funny has been said in this video, but even if the laughter is trying to be avoided, I'm probably still more funny than people who think they're above it all and don't care. Me? I only worry about three things. Everything that has happened, everything that is happening, everything that will happen. And you should too. Spiritual Kiwi farmers who want to sit back and laugh at people explicitly don't. There's something wrong with that. They should be ideological fanatics. The objective of online political commentators is to see how much shit their audience will eat before it stops being profitable. A word of advice for any upcoming politologues: your audience will never call you out. I am not an online political content creator. My videos are solely for entertainment. Dog water, so-called movement conservatives have been lying for fucking years. Yet, John Goyle's audience does not compose of inquisitive minds. Curious. Nick Fuentes sycophants need to be told that every single bad thing America has ever done can't be boiled down to the malign influence of Zionists. This narrative is popular because it's a comfortable lie. When there are elites that are self-described connoisseurs, revolution is the final solution. Fighting for an autocratic monarchy is difficult. It may include tight organization, the formation of a vanguard party, the production of nationalist reinformation, robbing banks, being sent to a gulag, being exiled from your own country, bloodshed, and actual sacrifice. In short, restoring the monarchy is a dream because you have to be asleep to believe it. But even if I am a monarchist, people who still believe that this can be solved through collaboration, voting, you can just do things in the Trumpian golden age, or even more delusional. When Shaboskoy, Daily Wire Zyokuk shill, John Doyle, is standing against any wall, he will say so much for the tolerant left. And the podcast race will say he destroyed the woke school teachers with facts and logic. To put it very plainly in Israeli, conservatives do not have an attention span at all. This is known because they have not thought seriously about the future. leader. Donald Trump's sycophants believe it's heroic to sit on the ground for over a minute, then stand up when you get the all clear from 15 different CIA agents. There is nothing courageous or brave about Dump raising his fist and saying fight. At that point, the Secret Service had given him permission to leave. There is only one way out. We must finish once and for all with the neutrality of chess. We must condemn once and for all the formula chess for the sake of chess, like the formula art for art's sake. We must organize shock brigades of chess players and begin immediate realization of a 5-year plan for chess. Thank you, Monarch. Thank you because I am joyful. Thank you because I am well. No matter how old I become, I will never forget how we received the king 2 days ago. Centuries will pass, and the generations still to come will regard us as the happiest of mortals, as the most fortunate of men, because we lived in a century of centuries, because we were privileged to see our king, our inspired leader. Yes, and we regard ourselves as the happiest of mortals because we are the contemporaries of a man who never had an equal in world history. The men of all ages will call on thy name, which is strong, beautiful, wise, and marvelous. Thy name is engraved on every factory, every machine, every place on the earth, and in the hearts of all men. Every time I have found myself in his presence, I have been subjugated by his strength, his charm, his grandeur. I have experienced a great desire to sing, to cry out, to shout with joy and happiness. I shall be eternally happy and joyous, all thanks to you, great educator, our king. Everything belongs to you, chief of our great nation. I love a young woman with a renewed love, and shall perpetuate myself and my children, all thanks to you, great educator, our king. And when the woman I love presents me with a child, the first words I shall utter will be, God save the king. It is commonly believed that Canada could never resist an American invasion, but have you considered Poland? When you look at Serbia, Poland, and Ukraine, they have all successfully fought off larger countries. The big nations of the world have all failed in subjugating their neighbors and creating an imperium. Right now, the score is 3-0. Poland won. Serbia won. Ukraine fucking won. In this context, it is not so unbelievable that we can do the same. But the reason these nations are independent is because they had the backing of other great powers. Serbia's independence was guaranteed by Russia, Poland's by the United Kingdom, and Ukraine's by America. For Canada to survive, it will be an absolute necessity to align ourselves with another great power. Of course, this is difficult. Washington, D.C. isn't blindfolded with both arms tied behind its back. However, something that isn't widely known is that Serbia was once aligned with Austria-Hungary and hostile to Russia. This alignment ended with the 1903 May coup, which shifted Serbia into Russia's sphere of influence. At the time, both Russia and Austria believed that the new Karađorđević government would maintain the status quo. Austria really would have invaded Serbia if they knew that the new regime would betray them for Russian protection. Similarly, if a coup took place in Canada and America believed that the new government would maintain the status quo, and then Canada drifted into a great power's sphere of influence, that would be a way of maintaining Canada's independence. Another way to secure independence is during a period of internal crisis. Poland got its independence during a time when both Russia and Germany could not project power beyond their borders. Ukraine aligned itself with America when the Soviet Union exploded. If the Republican entity underwent a similar catastrophe, it would be a great opportunity to become the client of another great power. Of course, much like Poland and Ukraine, having what is essentially a forward operating base for a country hostile to America and what the Americans arrogantly and ignorantly consider their so-called backyard will be intolerable for them. Sooner or later, it will lead to an armed conflict. Here, there are two scenarios. One is a Poland-Serbia scenario, and the second is a Ukraine scenario. For Poland-Serbia, America invades Canada and occupies it, but its aggression leads to a world war against the great powers backing Canada. Eventually, a coalition of nations beat back and destroy America, and Canada's sovereignty is maintained. The Ukraine scenario is America engaging in a limited war against Canada, illegally occupying land. With the support of the great powers, Canada will be able to maintain an active conflict for 10 or 20 years. The goal is to outlast America in a war of attrition. None of this needs to happen, but any enemy on our soil should be afraid to even make a step. This goes for foreign transplants too. All signs are pointing to the new America being a pan-nationalist mega project that wants to start by annexing Canada, then Europe. They will be bellicose warmongers. The demographic end of our nations should be the most pressing issue, yet after the election of Trump, Americans, and even some Canadians, would rather focus on expanding America's border than the Grim Reaper on their doorstep. It just shows you who they really are. Everything that I have just outlined is purely defensive. It is an existential struggle that I'm sure we will win. The existence of Canada is non-negotiable. Austria-Hungary, the German Reich, and the Soviet Union failed and collapsed. As Canadians, it is now our responsibility to see that the United States dies with the rest of them. The time for small nations has come. If you're not willing to start a world war over your culturally irrelevant and insignificant country, do you really have a country? I am crazy. If I were ever leader of Canada, I would wage a Zelensky-style campaign of national suicide.
Здесь со вкусом кофе из молока река.
Democracy has always been enforced with blood and iron. Germany didn't choose democracy, neither did Japan. Many other countries are only polyamorously homo because it was forced on them by America. These liberals care so much about free speech, the open marketplace of ideas, unfettered competition. Yet, when it comes to a system that poses competition, they violently overthrow it immediately. The enemies of the national cause are everywhere. Even as we are making advances, they are ready to stab us in the back to achieve their own objectives. The United States is synonymous with a project to break down and merge humanity into one human hydra. Anyone who doesn't have a fanatic commitment to a monarchy with a paternal autocrat is not your friend. I have no friends who support America. Those working within this system, like Oren McIntyre and basically everyone associated with the Old Glory Club, find themselves taken over by a parasite. The parasite of America, that is. Canada is the sword the Aryan race will use to strike down the Republican entity. At the roof of the world, Europe laid our crown. Autocratic monarchies stood undefeated for 1,000 years. It had always been our effort to improve the moral condition of humanity, to peacefully support our development. However, our enemies have always grudged the success of our work. We have had to suffer all of the overt and secret enmities from the United States and international finance, from the Soviet Union and social democrats. Today we are totally abased. Nothing ties us to our ancient past. The struggle today deals with whether or not we will be able to complete our crusade against democracy once and for all. It deals with whether or not we will be able to fulfill our national cause. It deals with the eradication and annihilation of the United States. We are going to survive a struggle against a world of enemies, along with our Lord Jesus Christ, who is with us today as he was with our ancestors. If you're sitting down, I need you to stand up. I will give you a second, don't worry. And now that you're standing, I need you to put your left hand on your heart and your right hand in the air, sort of like a Roman. And now repeat after me, except when I say name. When I say name, you will state your full first and last name. Here begins the oath. I name. Swear by the sun that warms me, by the earth that nourishes me, before God, by the blood of my ancestors, on my honor and on my life. that I will, from this moment until my death, dedicate my life to the destruction of the United States of America, and that I will always be ready to make any sacrifice for our national cause. I swear before God, on my honor and on my life, that I will always fight for the national liberation of Canada and the liberation of all Aryans. I swear before God, on my honor and on my life, that I will sacrifice my blood and my soul for Canada. May God and my comrades be my judges if, knowingly or not, I should ever violate this oath. End. We are now bound by the blood of the covenant.